Welcome back to the Molloy Twins Podcast, and today I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Martha Donnelly. Martha is a mindset coach who works with some of the country's greatest athletes, so it's an absolute pleasure to have her with me on today's episode to talk about all things managing your mindset, your motivation, and your mental fitness throughout Christmas and going into the new year. It was a great episode. It was so cool to have Martha on. We actually had her on the podcast back in August where she shared so much value and insight, so it was great to do a bit of a round two, especially at this time of year between Christmas and New Year's, where it's a bit of a lull zone. There's not too much going on, so it's a nice time to sit down, reflect, maybe look at what's happened, but also what still lies ahead and what's to come in 2025. And so I hope this episode gives you some value heading into New Year to set yourself up for success. So let's get into today's episode. So Martha, we last had you on the podcast back in August, which in some ways feels like an absolute lifetime ago. Things just move so fast. But in other ways, I mean, it's only been a few months. And since then, I've been keeping up with you on Instagram. I know you've been up to a lot of really cool stuff, which I'm excited to chat a little bit about today. But I want to kick off by asking you firstly, since we last spoke in August, has there been anything that you've either changed your mind on or anything that you've like doubled down on, really put into practice with yourself or with clients, and you feel like it has such great benefits that you could share with the listeners?
To be honest, not really, because I've always kind of stuck to the same stuff. It's more so just been, if you want to seek an opportunity, it's kind of just like go and get it. Go and speak to people, go and network. Part of kind of owning your own business and working for yourself is networking. So when I kind of went from working full-time in corporate, moving into working for myself, you have to build up that networking with the people that you want to work with. So kind of, I suppose, more of what I've done since August would be networking, creating opportunities, going out there, meeting new people. And I've met some great people in the past couple of months. It's mad actually to feel that August was actually that long ago, to be honest. So I'd say networking would be a big one.
Nice. And just since you mentioned self-employed and it's being Christmas, did you have like a self-employed Christmas party or anything like that for yourself?
Oh, yeah, it was me on my own.
Yeah.
Guinness, yeah.
Love it.
It's actually mad, like not actually having that like work Christmas party as such, because you're kind of, everyone's going out and like the whole office is going out, but then when it's just yourself, you create your own, like you go out with the girls more, you kind of you go out with family, I suppose, a bit more. You just kind of create your own party, I suppose.
Yeah. Every day is a party. You're your own boss. No one tells you when to get up, when to go to bed. It's deadly. Look, the main reason I wanted to get you back on now, specifically, Martha, was because it's a weird time of year. It's kind of Christmas, New Year's, you're kind of reflecting on what's happened, looking to what's still to come or what might come in the future, etc. And that can bring up some challenges, some difficulties for people. So I want to use this as a chance to kind of pick your brain a little bit on what's the best way to kind of look back and maybe learn from the lessons over the last few months, whether it's been good, bad, or indifferent, and then also setting yourself up for success going into the new year when motivation might be high, but maybe you don't really know where to channel it or how to sustain it or anything like that. But first thing, I just want to ask you, Christmas in itself can be a beautiful time of year, magical, but can also be stressful. There's maybe old traditions that aren't great that you just stick to because it's what's always been done, or maybe there's certain family members who you have to be around that maybe aren't your favorite to be around or whatever else. What are some common, would you say, mental health traps or difficulties people can run into over the Christmas time?
I think the biggest one is a comparison fatigue, which is that we often compare our celebrations to someone else's. We often, the first question that we'd ask someone would be, oh, what's your plans for Christmas Day? Mm-hmm. And someone might be like, oh, well, I'm going here in the morning, and then I'm going to this house in the afternoon, and then I'm having dinner here. That person might be going here, there, and everywhere, but the person that's asking them could be, oh, well, I'm just actually at home for Christmas with maybe one or two people, and maybe they feel like they should be doing more, or maybe they didn't have as good of a year as the other person, and maybe they feel like Christmas isn't as magical as maybe the other person feels it is. Everyone has their own experience of Christmas. Sometimes it can bring sadness for people, sometimes it can bring happiness for people as well. And it's just not to feel like because someone else is doing a lot that you should be doing the same. We do fall into this comparison fatigue of feeling like we should be doing more. You feel quite stressed around Christmas. Christmas is a stressful time. It's chaotic.
Yeah, it's
It's
mad.
the whole month really of December. It's like going into the shopping centres and it's madness, or it's all the ordering online, getting all
Yes.
the presents, wrapping everything, trying to finish up work. It can bring on a lot of stress for people. So I think the big one will be comparison fatigue with multiple different aspects, whether that be Christmas Day celebrations, and the rest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like even just the thought now of what you said around just December as a whole, how chaotic it is. Even in my mind, I'm thinking back like, yeah, Jesus, there's it's like you've got the month of December, but really you're trying to cram everything into like a 2 week period of
Yeah.
the month because you know the rest of it is either going to be a bit of a write off or just not much productive is going to be getting done, whatever else. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And every
it's
weekend as well. It's like there's
oh
something on every single weekend. And then someone's like, hey, are you free on this day? It's like, well, I've got literally something on every weekend,
yes, yeah.
every Thursday or something. There's just so many parties and things to do and all the Christmas shopping and things to get done and getting in all the food for Christmas Day. And you're just like, you're flat out, like you're busy as well as working. You're trying to close out your work to give
Yeah, the
yourself
professional life.
you know?
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
kind of need this job in January, so I better not fuck it all up in December. Yeah. When things get busy, get chaotic, get stressful, whether it's Christmas or just any time throughout the year, do you have any mindset tools, tips, techniques you like to lean back into to help get calm, get centered, and kind of push on from there?
Yeah, I would highly recommend a 5 minute reset. It's literally just like to reset and refocus, because when your mind starts going into this negative spiral of thoughts and overthinking, you can literally go into this trap of feeling negative all the time. It's like your
Okay.
nervous system is on overdrive. And like the smallest thing that someone could say to you could just spark you. And I think the month of December kind of does bring that for a lot of people. So a 5 minute reset of just writing down, even like a reflection on the week, how the week went, what you want to improve on for next week. And it just helps with kind of setting the tone. I know we're kind of like almost near Christmas, but even with New Year's coming up, it's a good way to just reset. Ask yourself what's on your mind currently,
Yeah.
what can you improve on next week, what do you need right now in order to feel better over the next couple of days, and especially over the next couple of weeks as well, when things are quite busy with preparations for Christmas and New Year's, to be honest, because it kind of all
Hmm.
comes out like one time. There's parties and different things going on. So it's like a mental health check-in with yourself.
Nice. Yeah.
Literally just checking in with yourself, and that 5 minute reset can be really helpful.
Beautiful. And you said that's literally just getting a pen and paper, sitting down, and just 5 minutes, go for it.
Yeah, literally write down everything that's on your mind, everything that you feel has currently led up to that point of feeling like your mind is on overdrive. I also recommend like a 5 minute breath work as well. It's called a
Mhm.
5-5-5 reset. It's
Oh,
where you
okay.
breathe in through your nose for 5, hold for 5, and breathe out through your mouth for 5. And if you do that 4 to 5 times, it straight away lowers the energy, that overwhelming energy for you, and then gets straight into your writing then for about 5 minutes after that.
Beautiful. Okay, so 5 minutes breath work, then into 5 minutes of writing. So like literally 10 minutes, and that can completely just change the tone. Even though nothing external has changed, like internally, I'm just so much better at being able to deal with this now.
Yeah, because your brain automatically jumps to the negative before it'll ever jump to the positive. So
Hmm.
every time you feel like you've had a negative experience, because your brain will automatically find a negative out of something, it'll never
Yeah,
really
yeah.
find a positive. You have to find it yourself. And the best way to find that is through writing. You have to ask yourself, like, it's kind of like gratitude journaling, but it's also just asking
Right.
yourself those deeper questions. It's like, what worked this week? What's on my mind? What can I change? What can I improve on? And just that then goes deeper into your mind as to what the actual issue is that's causing you that stress currently.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That negative spiral is something that I think I'm guilty of it as well, by the way. I'm not saying this from a point of someone who's figured it all out. But it is weird when you actually step back and look at it, how that is just the natural next step is like this has happened, and then that just kicks off like a domino effect of the next negative thing and the next negative thing. And then it's almost like when you get to a point of, I'm not even sure if I'll say this right, but you get to a point of being so negative you don't even want to be positive. It's like, no, let me just drown in this misery, don't try to give me some positive shit now. Is that something you see with clients much?
It's very hard to pull yourself out of that negative trap when you're so deep within it. right? You can't see, it's like brain fog. It's like you just can't see anything else outside of it. You're like, well, this went wrong today, and that went wrong yesterday.
Yes.
And I'm feeling overwhelmed about this, whatever event might be coming up, or people are ordering clothes for an event that's coming up, and like there's all these little things, or something didn't arrive on time, or I've got a present and it didn't get here, and there's all these things that are happening, and then you're trying to like find a positive out of all of these negatives, and it can be really tough because your mind is just on overdrive, and it really does take that bit of a reset with yourself to just breathe, calm, and then try and just find, okay, what solution can I put in place to find that positive. So it's all about kind of finding a solution to pull yourself out of the trap, right? Because we'll straight away try and find all the problems. The best way to problem solve is finding a solution. So that's how you're going to be able to find the positive from it.
Yes, and people need to like consciously make that space to find the solution. Otherwise, they'll just keep going down the problem hole. And there's that. I found that about problems, Martin. Whenever you're looking for them, you can always find one. There's never.
You can find tons of problems. It's very hard, I think, to look for a solution. So if you can get yourself in that zone of finding a solution, it just sets you up, right? You're like, okay, this has happened, right? How can I fix it?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. You mentioned already like so much. So there's the comparison fatigue, and like I'm sure so many people listening will be able to relate to that over Christmas, and especially with Instagram and everything else, right? Seeing everyone's presents and what their partners got them for Christmas, and like all that other stuff that goes into it.
And the yearly roundups, like you're seeing.
Roundups,
and people are always going to share their achievements. You know, it's a highlight reel, and people are going to share their achievements. Very few will share the moments that didn't go as well, and I can guarantee you everyone had those moments. They had those ups and downs throughout the year, and not everyone's going to share them. So if you find that you're struggling viewing those reels or like those highlight kind of moments for people, just scroll past, and you can engage with them in January. It's not a case. You don't need to engage with them now. And if you find that that's something that you struggle with, just scroll past.
This is deadly, right? So there's consciously choosing what you will and will not engage with, and like you don't need our permission, but like we're giving you permission to say just scroll past it. You don't even have to read it, look at it, just keep going. There's the 5-minute reset, so taking 5 minutes to do your breath work, the 5-5-5 technique, and just taking that. There's 5 minutes of actually just pen and paper, no judgment, no worrying about what's going to come out here, just let it go, and kind of almost that exchange, getting it out of your head onto paper in itself is nearly just solves a lot of issues.
And you'll just be writing everything.
Yeah.
That's the best way to be.
Is there any other techniques or like self-care tips that you like to lean on?
Around this time of year, it like embrace flexibility over perfection as well. Because if you're in a routine currently with all the habits that you've built over time, where you like to get your X amount of workouts in every week, or you like to get, your meal prep done, and you've got like your routine set, people kind of feel unbalanced when Christmas comes because your routine is kind of thrown upside down a bit with all the events and people going out, and then feeling like maybe if you're on a fitness plan, like with alcohol and different kind of social gatherings and food and everything like that, that your routine is just kind of turned upside down a bit. So if you embrace flexibility over perfection, you can get your steps in, right? So make a plan with yourself, right? Say, over the Christmas week, next week, say, okay, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, I'm going to get a walk in the morning, and then gonna, you have your different places that you want to be or what you do on Christmas Day, and then say after my dinner, I'm going to get the rest of my steps in, and just kind of make a little bit of a plan as to how you can still keep some sort of movement going over the week. I feel one, mental kind of slump that people can fall into is that they don't do any movement at all, and naturally on the brain, that's not good. You need to get some sort of movement in, even like just your steps. Just try and fit them in somewhere throughout your day. Because if you go like 3 days without like any movement, it's just naturally it's not gonna be good for you. You're not gonna feel great. So if you can fit your steps in throughout the day, That's like one good thing where you feel like you've gotten some sort of movement in, and it really just helps your mind as well.
Unreal. Yeah. Yeah, the body was not designed to just sit on the armchair for 3 days straight, was it? At the very least, like, I don't know, put the crate of Budweiser as far away as possible. So you have to get up and walk to it to get it. Well, no, I think those things are so overlooked, especially during this time of year. And it's going to bring us into something else to talk about, which is this mindset that's like, oh, usually I go to the gym 5 days a week, for example, and I track my calories. Now it's Christmas, the gym is closed. I don't know, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Stevens' Day, so I can't get me 5 sessions in. And then straight away, that's like, oh, well, then scrap it. Like, I'll just start again in January and leave that. Is that a common thing you see? And what's some ways people can overcome that?
Yeah, it's kind of like, okay, we've gotten to this point, we're just going to throw the towel in and I'll start in January.
Yes, yeah.
Then January comes and you start to reflect on the fact that you haven't done any workouts in about 2 to 3 weeks, and you start to go into that negative spiral again because you haven't gotten any movement in. So I suppose the first thing is, what can you do if the gym is closed? What can you do differently? Can you do a home workout? Can you get maybe your 10 to 12k steps in, or whatever amount of steps you have that you can do on a daily basis? Can you get a run in, or some other form of movement that you can fit in order to replace the gym? Because if the gym is closed, it's about looking for the solution rather than seeing it as a problem. And again, it goes back to that solution. It's finding a solution that can help you. But it is a common struggle. Like, it is something that people do where beginning of December comes and they're like, well, I've got all of these events coming up over December. I'm just going to give up now and I'm just going to start in January. And that's a whole month gone. Whereas Christmas Day is one day. New Year's Eve is one day. It's not the whole month. So you can definitely fit in things over the month that will prep you and help you in the new year. And it's all about keeping that flexibility, but also keeping up with some of the habits that you have and bringing them into the new year with you.
Beautiful. So as this episode comes out, we're going to be in that weird period between Christmas and New Year's where no one really knows what day it is, not really sure what's happening, etc. And I love to use that time as like reflection and then planning for 2025. And I think it's like such a valuable time to be able to use. But it can be tricky to know, okay, where do we even start with this? Like, what should I do? What does a reflection? So I kind of want to break it into 2 parts. Firstly, reflection, looking back on 2024, the good, the bad, the lessons learned, everything else that comes with it. Do you have a favorite way or preferred way to kind of reflect on the year?
I'm always reflecting. Whether that's consciously or unconsciously,
yeah.
I'm always reflecting, to be honest. I would say the best thing to do is look back at every month, like actually do a small reflection on every month throughout the year and pick out one great thing that happened every month from last January to now. And just write down one positive from every month and go back through your camera roll. Go back through the pictures in your camera and look back at the memories that you had from each month and pick out one thing you're grateful for each month. And that's a good way to look back, to start it on a positive note, rather than straight away your brain going to what didn't work out or what did I not get done that I had initially planned I was going to get done in 2024. Because I can guarantee you there's so many good things that happened that you're overlooking. We tend to overlook those small wins all of the time. We just look for the big win, whereas all those small wins add up over time. So definitely look back at every month, pick out from your camera roll a memory from each month that you can write down. Look at the setbacks and the challenges that you went through, but what you learned from them. Because there's so much more to learn from a setback and a challenge than there is from success. If you were just handed success, what did you learn from it? You're going to learn so much more about yourself throughout life in general from a setback and a challenging time. So if there was a challenge that you went through, a setback, ask yourself, what did you learn from it? And what can you improve on moving into the new year from that? What can you take with you? That's a lesson learned.
That's amazing, yeah. So you can reflect on the wins and take those, and you can reflect on the struggles, but you can't look at a struggle unless you're going to put a lesson learned beside it. So it's like they have to come as a pair. It's like, have your wins, celebrate them, have your challenges, but every challenge, put a lesson, put something that you're actually going to take with it. And I think even that as a mindset, I know it's something John Kavanagh literally wrote a book about, win or learn. It's like you either win and celebrate, cool, but if you don't win, it doesn't mean you failed, you've lost. Because if you take a lesson from that, that can help you win the next time, then it was a failure worth having nearly to an extent. And even that framework, so simple. It's like 12 months of the year, list them out. Each month, a win, challenge and a lesson. A win, a challenge and a lesson. Yeah. It's like beautiful. So much better than what I usually do, which is super complex and takes a ton of time and is just a waste, to be honest, because that's all you really need on the year, isn't it? It's like, bang, this is what was great. This is what I struggled with, and this is what I'm going to learn from that experience, so that next year I either don't struggle with it or don't struggle as much with it as the year before.
Yeah, because there's always room for those 1% improvements, but if we overlook those small wins and overlook a challenge or a setback and not take anything from it, those 1% improvements are not going to be taken with you from that. It's like even if you were on a fitness plan and you felt like it didn't go the way you wanted, or you didn't hit your goal weight, or something just didn't go, you didn't hit the goal that you wanted, regardless of what that was, there's so much from that plan you were on that you learned from. And that's just one example of many, many examples. But what didn't work for you during that time and what did, and take what did and then improve on what didn't. There's always room for those improvements, but there's also always room to find a positive in every setback and challenge as well.
Lovely. So that's the reflection done. Now I want to look at the projection, I suppose, and looking at the year ahead, what's to come 2025. And the new year is always a time of fresh starts, new year, new me, that whole spiel that comes and goes. So I want to break this into a couple of pieces. Number one is, what's the most common, let's say, mindset mistakes people make going into a new year that kind of set them up for failure more so than success?
Comparing your lifestyle to somebody else's. So you might be looking at someone else's goals for the new year and saying, I want to do that. But look at the lifestyle that you currently have and see, can you fit that goal in with it? You might be a busy parent and you're working shift work or a 9-to-5 job and your days are packed out, but you're saying to yourself that you want to train for maybe high rocks, or you want to start a new fitness plan and it requires you to do 5 days in the gym or something like that, right? Make sure whatever goal you want to do in the new year is something that you can fit around your lifestyle. And if you feel it's something that you really, really want, make it fit in somehow. So we do have this comparison trap where we say, oh, I'd love to do what they're doing, right? And then you go to start it, but after 3-4 weeks, the motivation that you initially had will drop. And the self-discipline that wasn't built over those 4 weeks won't be there to back you up. So you're starting to feel drained then because the goal that you had is not fitting in with the lifestyle that you currently have. So you have to make sure that it's going to fit in. If you plan that now, right? If you say there's a goal that I want to achieve in the new year, and you write that down now and you write it down around the lifestyle that you have, you'll be setting yourself up for that success in the new year. I think it's like an automatic thing that people do where they're like, okay, January 1st is here. What am I going to do? I have to do something, right? It's like a New Year's resolution, right? Everyone's kind of tricked into feeling like they have to set up this New Year's resolution. If you just keep doing what you've always done and keep improving on the goals that you currently have for yourself, you're always improving on those 1% as you go. But if you have a new challenge for yourself, if you want to set yourself up for something new in the new year, just write out how you're going to fit it around your lifestyle. And that's one part that people forget to do, is how am I going to fit this into my day-to-day? Right. So it's just about fitting in what you need as a part of that goal to set yourself up for that success.
I'm going to completely put you on the spot here, but I'm just curious, do you have any goals for the new year? Have you started looking yet at 2025 and stuff you want to do?
Yeah, I have. So I kind of split my year up into quarters. So I've got Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and I'm like, right, what do I want to have done by March? What do I want to have done by the end of June, and so forth. I always have goals. Like I always have something to work towards, and I try to challenge myself more as well. Stepping out of your comfort zone is a big one. If you're always, you can't grow in your comfort zone. You can only grow in like outside your comfort zone. So if something feels uncomfortable for you, then it's probably the right thing for you to do. just go and kind of do it. And if it doesn't work, then take something positive and a learning from that as well. But yeah, I know I've always got goals.
Love it. I want to ask a question on comfort zones, right? Because I know for maybe, I don't know, pull a number out of the sky, but like 5% of people, they can literally just flip a switch and it will be like, right, currently I do absolutely, like David Goggins style, right? Currently I do absolutely nothing, no exercise, bang, New Year, I'm going to do a triathlon. I'm going to do an Ironman. I'm going to do something crazy. And they actually just go and do it and make it happen. And for a small percentage of people, they're just able to turn that switch and make it work. But for the other 95% of people, then let's say, who will set a similar goals, like currently I do nothing, and now I'm just going to go, book an Ironman for March or something, and I'll do that. And within a couple of weeks, they're injured, they're sore, they're tired, they're cranky. They're like, yeah, this isn't for me, I'm done. So when it comes to pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, I know this is nearly an impossible thing to put a number on, but is there almost like, let's say, a percentage outside the comfort zone that's a good place to go? Like, how far do you think makes sense for people to set a goal that will give them a challenge to grow, but not be like too big where it's almost like, yeah, it's probably not realistic, it's probably not going to work?
Don't burn out is probably the first one. If you find that you're on the verge of burnout, stop. Because the last thing you want to do is completely burn out. If you find that you're pushing yourself towards that goal that you have and you're still really enjoying it, right? You might be feeling like you're tired, you're maybe a little bit drained from just this brand new goal that you've literally just set for yourself when you had been doing nothing previously. If you find that you're at that point of mental and physical like burnout, then stop. If you're finding that you're not happy doing it either, then stop. Right? Happiness is so much more important. You have to also know when to take a step back as well and reassess the goal that you have. If you're not reflecting during the goal, you're not really learning anything either. So depending on the time frame that you've given yourself for that goal, make sure you're always reflecting week to week and see what worked that week, what didn't, what can I improve on. You're always improving as you go. You're always going to improve on those 1%. If you're pushing and pushing and pushing and you're not reflecting, that also can lead to that burnout because you're not seeing, well, what's working and what's not. So that would be suppose my way of putting it.
Looking at that. No, it makes complete. The reason why I asked is because if you want to challenge, like, naturally enough, challenge yourself to do anything, it's a challenge, so it requires you to push yourself. But it's not just a like arbitrary thing of like, okay, I tried this, set this crazy goal, and it didn't work, so I just can't do that, and it's not for me. It's like the lessons thing we spoke about earlier. It's like if you set a goal and it doesn't work for you, it's not a case that like you're not able to achieve that goal, but maybe something in how you've either set the goal or the timeline you've given yourself to achieve the goal, or like there's something in there that you could just tweak that, change that, and that's what sets you up for success moving forward. And I think it's called like general adaptation syndrome, maybe, or something like that. But like every individual is individual, right? So like my ability to deal with stress and fatigue and difficulty is completely different to even Lee, right? My twin brother, we're literally genetically the same, more or less. But even for me, I know I can push myself to a certain level. He knows for him, he can go to a certain level. So it comes back to the comparison thing as well, is like, maybe don't feel like you need to set stupid, crazy goals for the New Year's. And if you do, and you and your friend maybe set the same goal and they're crushing it and flying and you're maybe not finding it as easy, it's not a reflection that you can't do it. Maybe it's just you're individuals, you're different people, and so you have to go at your own pace.
Exactly. It's got to do as well with, I suppose, times in your life that would have built mental resilience for you. Maybe the other person had previously trained in other aspects before, and maybe this is your very first time training at this level. So it's also got to do with maybe how you manage stress, how you handle anxiety, how you where your levels of mental resilience are as well. So it's got to do with different aspects. It's not a case that you can't achieve it. It's just a case of maybe you need to reflect more as you go through so that you can learn more about yourself and build as you go.
Beautiful. Right. I do want to do some Instagram Q&A because I asked for some questions and we got a few in. So I do want to make sure we get to them. One last thing before we close the book on New Year, me, all that stuff. If you could challenge listeners right now to do one thing, that could set themselves up for a successful 2025, what would it be?
Only one.
We'll start with one. Yeah.
I suppose be very deep and honest with yourself about what you really want to achieve, like what your values, right? What it is that you value, and a goal that you have in mind that you feel like you really, really want. Because it's very common to look at other people's goals and say, I want that too. Again, it goes back into that comparison trap. It's like, oh, I want what they did, right? I want to achieve that as well. And ask yourself, why do you want it? Really deeply ask yourself, why do you want it? So if there's a goal in mind, I want you to ask yourself why you want it. So find that value. If you find your why in what you want to achieve, you're going to build that discipline. You're going to be able to get that why to back you up at times when motivation isn't there. That's the first one. And then to throw in another one would be to consistently reflect as you go through it. So always reflect and then find that value. That value is a huge one with something that you want to achieve, and that'll set you up. Once you have that why, you'll be set up then for success in the new year.
Deadly. Okay, Instagram Q&A time. Thank you everyone who submitted questions, by the way. First one, how can I have a positive mindset at work when my manager makes it hard? Now, I actually know this person and their situation, so if you need a bit more context, let me know, but if you have enough there to work off, just crack on.
Okay, so I suppose the first one is we can control our reactions, but we can't control someone else's actions. It's natural human behavior to try and control absolutely everything. So we want to control ourselves and the other person and the whole situation. So firstly, you can only control yourself and not them. But a manager is there to manage you. And if you also feel like you're managing them, that's not really the fairness out of it. I would say communication is key, and to set up a one-to-one meeting with them and kind of discuss the situation at hand, which can be tough. Maybe come up with a way of being able to work together better going forward. And also, if you feel like you need to bring someone else in, like another manager, and maybe just discuss the situation, depending on how far it's gone. I suppose if you find that it's tough to go into work every single day, the first thing would be to set up a one-to-one meeting, but also to remember that you can't control their actions, and to also know when it's the right time to take a step back.
Beautiful. And you're right, like it is tough. You're trying to do your job, be managed, and then also manage the managers so they don't keep getting in your way, whatever else. I know for this person,
manager, you're not there.
Yeah, exactly. I know in this situation, if this person could respond, they'd be like, oh, but I could set up the one-to-one, but they just don't listen, they don't take it on board. I can say these things and whatever else. And I think part of that is, sometimes people are just closed and not open to receiving information. Sometimes it's how we communicate the message, or like how we actually frame it, that causes more problems than it solves, because we just cause people to kind of get defensive and whatever else. Do you have any suggestions or ideas or tips for like those sort of scenarios?
If they're not listening and you're setting up the meeting, there's that clear communication from your side about your feelings as an employee, going above them to speak to someone else who manages them, it can be very hard to do. But if you've found that you've gone through every motion before that, and that's your next step, that would be the next thing to do. Otherwise, the situation's not going to get resolved. You have to go to someone else above them, bring your concerns to them, and then hopefully then the situation can be resolved from a higher level.
Perfect. All right, cool. Next question then is, what are your favorite, or what's the best books you found on mindset or motivation? Do you have any personal recommendations?
There's so many. There's quite a few. Okay, so for motivation, I find Mel Robbins brilliant. She recently brought out her Let Them Theory book. I don't have the book currently. I am going to be getting it, but anything Mel Robbins podcast wise, any of follow her Instagram. She always has stuff up there as well. She always has YouTube videos and stuff out too. She is brilliant for motivation and mindset. For habits and learning more about habit building, it'd be James Clear, Atomic Habits. Yeah. And then from probably a deeper perspective with psychology would be Jordan Peterson. 12 Rules of Life, and then Beyond Order is the second book, 12 More Rules for Life. So I'd recommend those two. And then The Mountain Is You is a very motivational book.
Oh, I've never read that one.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Deadly. Have you ever heard of, I'm trying to think back to ones that I would have read or like listened to early on when I was getting into that stuff that I found really good. One was Joe Dispenza, I think, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Yes.
Just because it's such, like, I never thought of life in that way. Like, your personality as it is now is like just a series of habits almost that you've developed. It's like you can change pretty much any of them more or less that you want. And then the second one was, her name's Byron Katie. I think the book could have been The Work, maybe, or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but it was just I think it's probably similar to some of the Mel Robbins sort of style stuff. That's like just your interpretation of situations and like that sort of thing and the impact that has. So, yeah, hopefully there's some value in there for anything if you're looking.
Is brilliant. That's a good one, actually. Yeah.
Old Joe, deadly. And then this one here, I wanted to ask this myself, so I'm glad someone else asked it for me, because it's something that I'm always like trying to understand what the differences are mentally, internally, from like really high level athletes compared to average Joe. And I'll put myself in the average Joe category here as well, right? So it's like, what do you find, considering you get exposed? And one of the most common questions I got off the back of our last episode was, does Martha work with regular people like us normal folk, or does she just work with the high level? I was like, no, she works with everybody. But what do you find being the main differences between working with really high top level athletes versus normal people, let's call it?
So the first thing is, we're all human. So a lot of people would probably like exactly how that question is put, right? High level athletes versus normal people or the average Joe. It's like, we're all human. The main difference is that with an athlete, they've been training for their goal their whole life, since like either toddlers or teenage years. They know exactly what they want. With I'm gonna say the average person, right, who's not an athlete, who's training twice a day, let's say, is that the level of discipline is so different. Because with an athlete, they already know what they want. They already know what their goal is. They already know what they want to achieve. They already know what they need to do to get there. Their mental toughness and their focus is stronger because they know exactly how to get there, but also they've gone through setbacks, they've gone through challenges, and they've picked the positives out of them, and they've learned from what didn't work, and they've put that into practice then going forward. And they've put those motions into practice. For an athlete, it's always improving on the 1%. And I'm going to use the terminology, the average person, it's an average person would still struggle with things like motivation and self-doubt. But with motivation, that's already there with an athlete. The self-discipline is already there because they know exactly why they want it and how they're going to get there and what they need to do and what support they need to put in place in order to get there. So that would be the difference, would be like focus, motivation would be the two main ones that are already there in that mental toughness.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense, because I can imagine you're not speaking, and I'll use Shauna as an example because Shauna's been on the podcast and spoke about you, but I'll imagine your conversations with Shauna are like, oh, Martha, like, I just have no motivation to train, like, I haven't been to the gym, and like, I'd imagine hers like, Martha, I'm smashing it in the gym, like, that's not a problem, there's other stuff, versus for regular folks, right, average Joe sort of populations, like, I just really, I want to go to the gym, but I'm busy and there's this, and like, how can I get myself? So it's almost like just the level that they're operating at is different, and that's part and parcel of it. I am curious, what are some of the common, and you don't have to give like super specifics, but if for the average person it's like, just motivation to get up and go to the gym or maybe make a change in life is the common challenges for those guys. With high level athletes, what would be some of the common stuff that they'd want support on or work on?
It can be very similar, but in different aspects to an average person. So, work-life balance, as well. Some people are busy parents. They have to bring their kids to school, drop their kids places. Like, it's still managing training, like 2 sessions a day, sometimes 3 around that, and just finding time. But then also with focus, in fights or matches, depending on what they have coming up. It's just getting deeper within their mind into, everyone has a part of their brain called the amygdala, which holds your emotions, your memories, any limitations that you've created over time from setbacks in the past would be a memory. So being able to deeply tap into your amygdala through visualization tools and reflection. So a lot of what I do with athletes is really deep diving into that part of their brain so that you can straight away be able to tap into that focus point when you feel like your mindset is about to go in a fight or in a match, depending on which athlete I'm working with. So it's still as 1% all of the time, because there's room for improvement with all of those 1%. With a high level athlete, it's always those minor tweaks. And with the average person, then it's really just building the motivation, removing limiting beliefs from past experiences, confidence building, self-doubt, and things that would have been developed over time.
Yeah, makes sense. And I know a lot of people who listen to the podcast, and especially these sort of episodes, are either people on a fitness journey wanting to get into shape, or people who actually are personal trainers, coaches, run their own gyms. And so they might want to start, looking at the new year, how can I help my client achieve better results? And maybe it's not I need to write a better program or, do a course in nutrition or anything. Maybe it's I just need to help them develop the motivation, stay consistent. And I know that's something that you actually do work on, help with, etc. What kind of stuff, if you want to share, like how can people get in touch with you? What kind of services do you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do my one-to-one coaching, which is for everyone. And the way my one-to-one coaching is that I tailor it to the individual themselves.
Yes. Yeah.
So depending on where you are in your journey and what your goals are, my one-to-one service is tailored to you, whether you're a business owner, CEO, or you're an athlete, or you work a 9 to 5, or you're working shift work and you want to maybe set up your own business. It's just depending on where you're at in your journey will depend on how my one-to-one is going to be tailored to you. Then with fitness coaches, I do webinars for their clients as well. So with fitness communities online, I do the webinars where we work on goal setting, motivation, developing self-discipline, confidence building, emotional eating, stress management, anxiety, self-doubt, things that people would often struggle with on a fitness journey. Because often what can happen is the motivation is there at the beginning, and then after 3-4 weeks, those limitations start to show up in our mind. You start reflecting back on, oh, well, I did this plan 3-4 years ago and it didn't work at the time. So why is it going to work now? And straight away you're saying, actually, no, do you know what? This isn't for me. And you drop off the plan. And that can happen a lot as well, especially with January. You see people starting to drop off around the end of January, beginning of February, when they've just started a new program, because that kind of motivation after the Christmas period just starts to go. And then they're like, no, this isn't for me. So the best way to keep people on board is to work on their mindset, because it's your mind that is tricking you into believing that you're not capable. So that's what I do as well, like the webinars, and then I do in-person events as well. So if you're hosting an event, then I come in and I do a talk with everyone on their mindset too.
Love it. Cool. So on a one-to-one level, anyone who's listening who may be interested in getting that like individual support, regardless of whether you are a top level athlete or regular folk, let's call it, like that doesn't matter. What matters is, right now in life, you're somewhere you don't want to be, or there's somewhere that you'd rather be in any aspect. And so you need someone ultimately to help bridge the gap between where you are, where you want to go. And so that service can be tailored and set up accordingly.
Exactly. It's literally bridging the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. And that's your mindset. It's what's holding you back.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's journey is going to be different. So everyone on that call will take something different from what I'm saying, because it'll relate to their own journey. So it can be quite individual, although everyone's there in a group. They'll take something different from what I'm saying, depending on where they're at.
Absolutely. And it's something that I even used to find really interesting when I was like going through coaching, being coached, whatever. Sometimes as the client on the other side, you'd be like, yeah, well, I know I'm not really happy where I am right now, but I don't really know where I want to go either. So maybe I'll just not do anything and wait for this answer to appear to me. Where sometimes it's actually having these conversations, that focused time where you can start to dig in to see, what do I actually want? Like, where do I want to be? over the next few years, that in itself can be unbelievably valuable.
Absolutely. That's where that value comes in. It's like, what do you value? What do you want from life? And would you be happy staying exactly where you are right now this time next year? And 99.9% of the time, everyone's going to say no. So what can you do differently? How can you get out of where you are now? And put the motions in place to be able to move forward. And they are new habits. You have to just take that action, and you have to develop those habits to be able to get you to exactly where you want to be. So it's about, what do you value in life, and do you actually want to still be in the same spot this time next year?
Love it. So that's on a one-to-one level. Then for gyms, fitness coaches, whatever else, I actually think this is fantastic, because as a personal trainer previously in a past life, being in that space, your job is 60% exercise, nutrition, and 40% therapy, talking to clients about other stuff, whatever else. And it's a skill set that ultimately you just don't have. Like, they don't teach you in PT school how to work on this stuff. And some PTs might upscale or try read books and courses to help. But I think having an expert in that space who can offer that service and actually be that crutch to help your clients with the other stuff that ultimately you don't have the bandwidth to, you're just not skilled enough, let's say, to be able to do, is like, cool, we can nail it on the exercise and nutrition, but we know if the clients aren't going to stick to it, if they lose motivation, if they're dealing with the normal challenges of trying to make a change and they don't have the support to overcome that, they're going to drop off, they're going to quit. And that's going to be more churn, more clients that we're not being able to sustain and keep within the gym. So I think as a whole, having that sort of service and being able to provide that for clients to help give them that more holistic approach is an absolute game changer.
Absolutely, yeah, because with the topics that I chat about, so with PT, a lot of the topics that clients might come to you with would be surface level, but there's always other levels below that. And with the webinars and the coaching that I do, with the psychology background and the cognitive behavioral therapy background, I use CBT tools in my coaching to be able to dig deeper. We do visualization and reflective work on every webinar. We do it through all my one-to-one coaching as well, in order to dig deeper with a client. It's almost like, if you imagine just this wall with all of these bricks built up over time, we have to take each brick down and figure out why this wall was built up over time. Each brick is a limitation, a memory, an experience, something in your life. And we need to break it down to see why you feel like you want to throw the towel in and, drop off your plan. What actually caused that? Because the answer that the client might be giving you is not going to be the actual reason why. That's what we work through.
I'm just getting the image of Martha coming in with a bulldozer and knocking that wall. But no, I think that's great. I do have one final question to ask. Before I do, just could you tell the people where to follow you, where to find you, where to keep up with you and what you're doing?
Absolutely, yeah. So my Instagram and TikTok is Mindset with Martha. So you will find me mostly there. And there's also my website, which is mindsetmartha.com. So anyone who's interested in working with me can reach out to me there or drop me a follow as well.
Love it. Okay, last question. Because it's Christmas, it's the time of giving gifts, all the rest. If you could give anyone listening one mindset gift this Christmas to take into 2025 and beyond, what would it be?
Don't be so harsh on yourself. I can guarantee you that everyone listening to this right now has been harsh on themselves at least once this week. So don't be so harsh on yourself. Embrace flexibility over perfection during this Christmas period, and then going into the new year. Ask yourself those questions. What do I value? Do I want to be in the same position this time next year? And write down your goals that you have for the new year, what you'd like to achieve once they're a part of your values. But embrace flexibility over perfection and find a positive in every setback and challenge as well.
Beautiful. Martha, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting. And if I'm not speaking to you beforehand, have a fantastic Christmas and a very happy new year.
You too. Thanks a million.